Today's podcast is a very special podcast. It's an interview with someone who I've come to know, love, and respect. And I think you'll feel the same way about him after you listen to this interview. The interview goes about 2 hours, and it's going to dive deeply into all the different little recesses of our psyches with regards to success. The reason I like this interview in particular is because it is a story not just about success, and I think you'll be shocked at the levels of success this gentleman has attained in his life, but in a relatively short period of time, in about 6 years. He's gone from somebody who was certainly successful, had a long, successful career, and then at a time when a lot of people might think about taking taking the accelerator down to a slower rate, he decided to ratchet it back up again. Him and his wife Susan decided to get involved in a real estate company that at that time had fewer than 500 agents, and now has over 40,000 agents and is growing to probably over 100,000 agents this year, as in 2021. So the reality of it is this is a success story, not unlike the success stories that you hear in the tech industry, but unlike the success stories you typically hear in the real estate industry. This gentleman is somebody who's going to inspire you. He's going to motivate you. Hopefully, he'll get you into action. I've been saving this interview for the end of the year because, frankly, I know a lot of you will want to hear this because it'll motivate you to set bigger goals and think 10, 20x for 2021. The reality of it is 2021 is going to be the start of what will be, for many of you, the greatest runs of your real estate sales careers. And by that, I mean you're going to see ever-increasing opportunities to help people buy or sell real estate that are going to come fast and furious, frankly. You've got to enter into 2021 with the mindset that the market is going to just basically hit the ground running, and you better hit the ground running as well. So listen to today's podcast and feel the motivation. Understand that your best opportunities are still in front of you, no matter what your age is, no matter what your education level is, no matter what your experience level is. Whether you're a new agent, an old agent, whether you're a broker, whether you're a team, it does not matter. The simple fact is what is ahead of you is the best part of your life. And please enter into the year with that knowledge. And remember, it's not too late for you to complete your real estate treasure map. If you want to download your real estate treasure map, just text 2021. What is the phone number? Text 2021 to 855-685-1045. So just text 2021 to 855-685-1045. You can tell my brain's in holiday mode. And again, this is the real estate treasure map, which is the fill-in-the-blank business plan. Just text 2021 to 855-685-1045. And this will be the last podcast of 2020. And I want to sincerely thank you on behalf of Julie, myself, all of our coaching staff, for continuing to make this the number one listened to daily podcast in the nation. This year has been an incredible year for us because the podcast has really brought us into the ears of so many agents around the world. We're now listened to in almost 60 different countries. And the feedback that we've been getting from all the agents just from around the world, I get emails from agents in Portugal and Italy and texts from all of you. It's remarkable. And I so appreciate, and as does Julie, obviously, being part of your lives. It truly is our honor to be on this journey with you and the journey to your level of success, whatever level you'll choose to allow yourself to enjoy. But thank you for making this number one listen to podcast in the nation for agents, the daily podcast for agents. And thank you for the honor of allowing us to be your coach. If there's ever anything we can do for you, as we roll into the new year, I'm not hard to find, right? You can just text me at 512-758-0206. Now, I want to give a little friendly warning about today's podcast. We are going to be talking a lot about money, and not just a little bit of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, in some cases billions of dollars, because that's the amount of money that this gentleman is now basically experiencing in his life and his peers that started this business with him. And this is something that I want all of you to really open your minds to the possibilities of what you can create in a relatively short period of time if you really apply yourself. Today's interview is with Gene Frederick. And Gene Frederick is on the board of directors. He's one of probably one of the 5 most truly influential people in the real estate industry, if not the top 3. Realistically, maybe even the number 1 most influential person in the real estate industry. He's extraordinary with what he's accomplished in his life, but what he's really extraordinary is what he's done for other people's lives. That's the reason today's interview is so special. Gene, you can tell when you're listening to him talk and present, he's not really that much focused on himself. He is really sincerely focused on helping other people. And that's why he and I and Julie resonate, because we're all sort of we're all surfing the same vibrations, if you will. And that is being of service to other people, specifically people in the real estate industry. So when you listen today, I don't want you to be, turned off and then tune off because we're talking about money. Just open your mind. If it makes you uncomfortable, just, suck it up, and you'll appreciate the fact that you listened because it'll start expanding your thinking. And the other thing is we do talk a lot about EXP Realty. Because EXP Realty, and there was a great article that just came out on Inman News, essentially is the hottest thing since sliced butter in real estate. How about that? And it is the fastest growing real estate brokerage in the history of real estate. It's going international, and we're going to talk about that. Julie and I are involved with EXP Realty. Gene is obviously involved in EXP Realty. But just listen to what he's saying. Listen to the reason why so many people are joining EXP Realty. This podcast is not us trying to recruit agents into EXP Realty. This interview is about Gene, and it's about his experience in his whole life, but also all the experiences that culminated in his involvement with EXP Realty only 6 years ago. So this is an incredible, I think you'll agree, interview. Probably one of my favorite ones, just because Gene was so great to interview. And, it's funny, sometimes I'll get feedback after some of our interviews, and I don't do a lot of personal one-on-one interviews, and the reason I don't is because I won't do them I won't do them on Zoom. I only do an interview live. So if I can't do it live, I'm not going to do it. Because, when you're sitting around with someone for a long period of time, you're going to get them to talk about different things they normally talk about. But one of the questions I typically get is, how did you learn how to interview people? And the answer is, I studied a lot of it. I read. There's, great interviews that go all the way back to just forever. Not just like back to the Greeks. You can read books where people are interviewing people, where they're asking great questions. And I do have a long list of questions that I use. But I didn't have to use any of my questions with today's interview because Gene and I were so fluid with what we were talking about. And the other, I guess the number one way you do great interviews, for those of you who are sincerely interested in learning, is you interview people you're interested in. And I'm definitely interested in Gene Frederick because his story is inspiring to Julie and I. What he's done in his life is inspiring to us. What he continues to do for other people and the people that he continues to influence to improve their lives is truly going to be inspiring to you. So please do keep all these points in mind. Please don't have it a closed mind just because we talk about things that might make you uncomfortable. Be excited by the fact that some of these things make you uncomfortable because there's an old saying, wherever you resist the most is where your growth needs to be. So in the meantime, please enjoy the holidays. Please be grateful that you made it through 2020. That's something to celebrate right there. And please be excited about 2021. And again, thank you as always for keeping Julie and I as your trusted advisors, your coaches. Thank you for the honor of being part of your lives. We sincerely appreciate it. Have a fantastic day. Introducing Gene Frederick. Three, two, one, and we're back. And I'm here with a very special guest, as promised, a good friend of ours, Gene Frederick. And this is an interview I've been wanting to do for the last 2.5 years, but I've just been trying to pick the right time to do it. And I cannot think of a better time to do it than a few days before Christmas. And where, frankly, EXP is now trading at, what did it close for, $80 or something?
Something like
And there was an incredible article that just came out in Inman this morning talking about EXP. And just all these other great things. And so, listeners, here's what I'm telling you and I'm warning you is you're going to be hearing a lot about EXP on this podcast. So if for some reason that offends you, I apologize in advance. And if you're thinking about popping over to iTunes and giving us a bad review because we're talking about iTunes, we're talking about EXP, just give me a little bit of breathing room here. Consider it a spiritual Christmas present from you to me because we obviously are we're true believers and we're advocates of EXP. And I think if you had an open mind and listened to some of the things we're going to talk about today, I think you would see why so many agents, tens of thousands, are moving over to EXP. Because really, from an agent's perspective, there's nothing that comes even close. But without any further delay, Gene, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you, Tim. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah,
I really
good.
have.
Me too. Yeah, I wanted us to have more of a contextual conversation. This is the reason I've been procrastinating, to be honest. I want to have more things that are interesting to talk about, And since I've known you for about 2.5 years, I think we've had a lot of experiences together that we can kind of reflect upon. But I only have one question in mind for you, and we'll see where it goes. So I want you to put yourself back to what would have been now when you had your original conversation about EXP.
6 years ago.
Okay, 6 years ago.
Right.
So where were you? tell me as much detail on that as I know. I only know some backstory about Keller Williams, and you were basically in semi-retirement and the whole story. But can you take us through that psychological journey when someone came up to you and said, "Here's this thing, and here's what we've got"? And
Well, I think it's good to tell because I was unrecruitable. I mean, let's face it. I literally had, I've never told this story before. 6 months before I met Glenn Sanford 6 years ago, and then I'll tell you why I met him. A company called me that was going national, that had about 3,000 agents, said, Gene, I want you to lead. I want us to go international. And I said, thank you for calling. It was like March of 2014. I said, thanks for calling, but I own 6 franchises in Keller Williams. I own a region that I started in 1998. We might as well not even meet. I'm just unrecruitable. And he goes, well, I appreciate it. You're the first person I'm talking to. Thanks. So this is 6 months. This is like the spring of 2014. I get a call from, and then I retire a few months later, actually, from being a team leader. And I'm still running the offices in the region. But I get a call from Elizabeth Riley and Jill Liebernight, 2 of the agents that I used to work with. I was the team leader of. And they said, Gene, can you check out this model for us? And I said, what do you mean? They go, you are good at this. You've been in the business for so long. We can't understand it. This guy came into town. His name was Glenn Sanford. And actually, it's kind of a funny story. She said, and he just talked and we thought it was cool, but we don't know how to analyze the model. Can you just analyze it for us? And I said, sure. And they said, we want you to meet with Glenn. Well, that took a couple months. Glenn came out to Austin, Texas in November 2014. And I think it's a good instruct because I was not thinking of going anywhere. Tim, I mean, let's face it. Susan and I had spent 21 years, our heart and soul, starting offices from scratch, signing leases that were $48,000 a month for 7 years. I mean, all the junk that franchises do. And we were set. I mean, I had more money coming in than I ever thought in my life. And I meet this young, good-looking guy, Glenn Sanford, and he comes into my world, and I went, I got to tell you, I spent 2 days with Glenn, just cut to the chase, and I came back and I said, Susan, this guy invented the company I would have invented if I would have invented a company from scratch.
it is genius, the business model.
Oh.
I mean, when agents see that, when they discover it for the first time, and they see really the thing has changed. Well, I want to go back to it. So when you started with EXP, your background really was building offices, but also, is there anybody in the nation, honestly, that you can think of? I'm not trying to get you to brag. I'll brag for you. That's been more involved with successfully recruiting agents than you. Is it safe to say that you're probably the biggest recruiter in the real estate industry?
Well, I don't know if I'm in the whole industry, but I think it's so funny when I see some of the list of the top 100 influential people in real estate. It's funny that they never go to the people that are working. I've talked to some of my buddies at Coldwell Banker and Remax.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Because I was the top recruiter 6 out of my last 9 years at KW. Either in a regional director's role or team leader role. So I'd get up on stage and get the top thing. I don't know what that meant. I don't know how I compared to people from Remax or KW. I mean, Coldwell Banker, but at KW, I loved it. I loved helping real estate agents. I think good recruiters just have a passion for real estate agents, period. We want to affect their lives. We want to help them in every way we can. Then I meet Glenn, and I got to tell you, because we're talking at a perfect time. I don't know what the stock price is today, but it closed at $81 yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? And this is 6 years ago. Guys, listen to this when I tell you. It was 18 cents a share when I talked to Glenn. 18 cents a share. And he's going at me, he goes, but here's what I realized, Tim, and this is real. This is what I realized. Glenn, do we all get it? He goes, yeah. And I said, so every agent can get stock. And he starts talking about it. I said, whoa, wait. Is it common shares? Is it preferred shares? Is it stock options? He goes, no, it's shares. They're real. And I went, dude, if this is real and all the agents in our company can have shares in the company. See, that was the big thing for me. People don't realize that. I knew people love ownership. I mean, if you own Coca-Cola stock, you don't drink Pepsi during the pandemic. If you own Tesla stock, you're owning a Tesla. You know what I mean? And stock ownership was a big thing, and nobody gave it to me. That's when I realized, love Gary Keller. Gary's a good friend. But in 1994, when Susan and I joined, we didn't get stock. Dave Liniger worked for him in 1986 for Remax. Dave never gave me stock. If Dave or Gary would have given me stock in the beginning, I probably would have never joined the other company.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Because you own it, the ownership.
Totally, it's psychological.
Yeah,
well, and financial now.
And in the franchise models, see what I realized, because I was the franchise owner, Tim, that's the only way I could make money besides selling home was to be an owner, own an office, own a region. That was the money that we all craved for. And of course, agents, there's only so many franchises and so much ownership. And then they look in their town, they might be in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they go, well, all the Remaxes are taken, all the Keller Williams, and they go, well, there's nothing except sell real estate. And I went, wow, Glenn. Now, 18 cents a share. I spend 5 months researching the company. For everybody on the podcast, I'm an ex-financial analyst. That's what I did for 6 years in the corporate world before I got into real estate. So I love to analyze. That's why Elizabeth came to me. That's why she came to me. That's why Jill, they go, you love to analyze. I said, sure, I got spreadsheets.
By the way, for those of you in EXP, the script that Elizabeth used to recruit Gene, you should be writing that down because it obviously worked.
Just check this out for me. Yeah. And I'm not looking. So I research it. I go meet Jason Gessing. Here's what everybody needs to understand about it. I only talked to 2 people before I joined this company. Jason Gessing and Glenn Sanford. I researched it for 5 months. I come back and I tell Susan, you know what's funny is 6 months, 6 years has felt like 6 months to me. That's how fast my life has gone in the last 6 years.
Well, that's what I wanted to share with the listeners so they can truly understand that. Your origin story with EXP, in essence, was what you just described. But it's fascinating because when you joined EXP, how many agents were there total?
By the time I joined, about 400.
Okay, that's incredible, isn't it, to think about that? And like now there's over 40,000, and it's projected 100,000 by the end of 2021. And on from there. And it's a fascinating thing to think, well, at some point, EXP is going to hit a wall on growth. The biggest company ever, Keller Williams, leveled off at 160,000. I don't think that's necessarily true because the model is so different than the normal franchise model. The model is so different than anything that's ever been created before. So there's no real reason why the growth wouldn't continue far past what the high water mark has been for a brokerage industry, which was KW. So you started when there was basically 400 agents and now there's over 40,000 agents.
Right.
That's extraordinary. So what did you originally see in it? What was that 4 or 5 months of analyzing that? You took longer to make your decision to join than Julie and I did.
Well, the reason is it was a different stage.
Yeah.
But also, I think the reason I took so long is, again, I was attached.
Yeah.
I'm unrecruitable.
Right.
I owned 6 franchises. Probably about 1,500 agents in those 6 franchises. I owned a region, 6,000 agents in that region. I spent 21 years building it up. So now I'm thinking, should I change? Here's what I did. Again, analytical. I'm going to tell this story because it needs to be told. I pulled the profit share from KW at the end of 2014, and I pulled the top 500 profit share earners. I want you to understand, and I don't know why, Tim, I've just always thought like this. Maybe it's from I'm Texas. You're a Midwest boy. Well, $3,000 a month tends to change people's lives. If I can get $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year, residual, that they don't, it's just coming in every month. I mean, my mom retired on that, I remember. She, and I said, if I can get $3,000 a month, it's going to take the pressure off agents. They won't have to worry about, the ups and downs of our business, which we know, Guess how many people at the end of 2014, what percentage of the agents, and at that time they had about 130,000, 140,000, what percentage of those were making $3,000 a month in profit
You're talking about Keller Williams.
Yeah, Keller Williams.
I have no idea.
See, what I did is I had to go, wait, if I'm going to leave this model, and I pulled it, and I went, oh my gosh, out of 130,000 people, there were 242.
Oh my.
Okay, 242 total. Now, it's 20% of 1%. And I went, wait, I was one of them. My wife was one of them. I thought everybody was making $3,000 or more a month, right? What was wrong with the model? Well, again, I go back to EXP. Glenn goes, we're going to revenue share. We're going to take the money off the top. which is the regional model for every franchise. If you guys don't know, if you're listening here, the reason I could analyze it better than anybody else, because I was a regional owner. We used to get the money off the top in the franchises. That's what the regional owners get. So the 5% or 6% that you guys are paying on every single check, where's it going? It's going to the regional owners.
Right.
I was getting that. And Glenn goes, well, we'll do that, but we'll share it with the agents instead of owners, because now the agents are what? Are owners. So I went conceptually, I got it then, and I went, I can't affect agents' lives at KW. I thought I could, but the only way to is to get them into ownership, and the ownership was gone. Does that help?
No, it does. And I watched I watched several really emotional, it was emotional for me, videos with Glenn being interviewed. And one in particular where he was describing how it was 2007 or something, in essence, basically the worst real estate crash and all the whole thing. And he's talking about how he wanted to make he himself was essentially, on his heels financially. And he was describing the experience that he went through. And he was a Keller Williams guy too. And he then put all these thoughts together, and it was in that very moment of financial darkness that he basically came up with this genius idea that it's obviously going to be the biggest thing in real estate ever. And so, but still the idea, even as sound as it was between 2007 and 2014, it only really had 400 agents. It was a great idea, a world-changing idea. But it goes back to it's interesting, even having a great idea, it doesn't mean anything unless you know how to sell it. EXP or anything else, right? Enter you, and then you all of a sudden are this very spark that they were looking for. Did they even know they were looking for you when they found you, by the way?
You know what's so funny? I've talked to Glenn and Jason about it. I got to tell you, on April 24th, 2015 is when they announced me. And on April 23rd, I flew out to Phoenix to go to this event. By the way, there were 37 people at the event, and they wanted to announce me. And I said, what do you mean announce me? And they go, well, these are all our brokers. We want to announce you. So I go out there, and I got to tell you, the night before, and I need to tell people this because it's very important when you're talking about a new company. I stood up, and I just, for the first time, met some of the staff. By the way, 7 staff members in the whole company. And at that time, and we're having dinner, and I gave a toast, and I said, I want you guys to know, model, awesome. Can't believe the model, but I joined because of Glenn and Jason. I said, you don't understand. I joined them. I said, and I stood up and I said, guys, I believe in you. I'm following you. And when we switch companies, we have to follow someone. Everybody thinks it's all about the model, but in reality, you're going to follow someone into a new adventure. So I've told these guys forever, guys, it's been 6 years now. Same guys I met 6 years ago. Same personalities. Have not changed. I'm going, oh, thank heaven. This is what I wanted. I wanted to change agents' lives, and they want to change agents' lives. When you meet Glenn and Jason, it's all about changing agents' lives, which is totally different. In the other models, it's changing the owners' lives.
Well, let's put some perspective to that, because it's a very good point. Because it's difficult for people to wrap their minds around this. So 6 years ago, effectively, the stock was worth less than a quarter, and now it has a market cap of $5 billion, right? And Glenn is a billionaire now, more than a billionaire. And in 2007, he was basically broke. What we're experiencing here is the essence of the American success story. Even in your situation, and I'm not going to talk about your financial situation, but we can safely say it's significantly different than it was 6 years ago. And people don't understand, and I didn't really understand this too, because it's hard to understand. When you see something grow this fast, you think, well, the train's already left the station, the best opportunity. It's just getting started. And to be on the ground floor, to be part of a company, and it is absolutely true. When you talk to some of the executives and the people that were, like you, that have been here since, forever, 6 years, right? Hardly forever. But, and to see how the money hasn't changed people, in essence. And what it's done more, it's reinforced the validity of the value it brings, because the emotional experience of having, talking to agents, like what you were saying, and I totally can relate to it, right? Of talking to agents that probably would never have had any kind of net worth, let alone financial security in their lifetimes. I mean, most agents never do. Hell, most Americans never do. Most Americans only have $400 saved, right?
Right.
But you're talking to some of these agents, and they're making, you know, 3, 5, sometimes only $1,500 a month, or 50,000. And you and I know people that are making over 100,000 a month from revenue share. And then so these people are able to create generational wealth for themselves and their families, and donate money, whatever they're going to do to it. And just to be in that environment where there's this many people who are having their lives changed this radically, this quickly, relatively speaking, it's hard to fathom. It really is.
Well, that's where I missed the deal. See, you got to understand, my whole life since 1984, I was in the franchise world. I mean, I started my own franchise in 1989 with another company before KW. And I always look back on it. It's the only thing I knew. It's the only thing you knew. It's big independents in local markets. You know, in Dallas, where I was, Ebby Holiday, big independent company. Been the only people don't even know who Ebby Holiday is, except in Dallas, right? They're big independent in Dallas, or franchises. That was it. And to your point, when I think about this, when I look back on it, I had no idea agents. There was no new model. I mean, let's just think of this. I mean, Century 21 was the first people to franchise. Then Remax, you know, right? And then KW, KW.
Your brain's circling around the growth thing and how it's just getting started.
Well, what I'm going to say is I had no idea. Do you understand 6 years ago when Jason and Glenn and I, we didn't know. We didn't know that the agents had no option for ownership.
Right.
They'd have no option for revenue share. And our goal, I got to tell you this on this podcast, because this is real. Our goal for the end of 2020, because we're at the end of 2020. Mm-hmm. Thank heaven we're at the end of 2020, right? Let's get this thing over with. But at the end of 2020 was 10,000 agents.
Originally, 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we wrote it down. It was 10,000. Yeah. And then I said, guys, wait. Let's do a massive goal. What would just sit? And we went 12,000 agents. and so you guys got to understand on this podcast, to go from 400 agents to even 12,000 in 6 years, or 5.5 is really what it's been, for me, would be really good in this industry. But what we didn't realize is the agents were starving for a new model. The word virtual, we talked about it, you know, when we talked today. The brilliance of Glenn is when Glenn said we're going to get rid of bricks and mortar. And I knew we had to, but we were way ahead of our time, because, you know, up until the pandemic that just happened this year, I still had people going, you don't understand, our agents want to come into the office. And I go, really? And now, for 5 or 6 months during the pandemic, they couldn't come into the office. And we've had a record real estate, right, all over the nation. Real estate still. So what's happening is now I'm getting brokers calling me going, Tim, I got brokers going, how do I go virtual? How do I do this? Did you not just realize that the world was going virtual? Did you not know Amazon was there? Did you?
Well, in their defense, though, it's easy. I mean, Julie and I, we have a bunch of rental properties, and like we did the math on our rental properties yesterday, and like not even taking into account, we have property managers for most of them, but not taking even account of managing the property managers. You look back at that investment thesis, and it really is asinine. It's just straight up asinine. You can buy rental properties till the cows come home, but if you look at actually what the net income is, not even including the time you put into it, look, there's not very many paths forward for the average, you know, I'm just a poor kid from Columbus, Ohio, right? There's not many paths forward for normal people to actually accumulate wealth unless you discover something, or, you know, basically your rich uncle dies, or your, you know, whatever, other than accumulating rental properties. Really, that's the main path forward that most Americans to gather wealth. And historically, that goes back forever. The greatest, you know, wealth in the history of humanity has always been accumulated through real estate, except when you discover things like this. And I'm not trying to get people to decide real estate, or, you know, investing in real estate, or, you know, doing EXP. What I'm suggesting is you do both. But the software, or the pre-programmed thinking that we had about how you go about moving forward, assuming you want to be, you know, you want to essentially ascend in your life, the software doesn't really apply to the modern times anymore.
Right.
And you were talking about, for example, virtual thing. But here's something else you mentioned too, which I want to underline. So we are talking about the fact that EXP has a market cap of $5 billion. And what it's fascinating, mind-boggling to consider, is that the companies that have been around forever, that people are more familiar with the brands, say Remax or Realogy. Oh, you're going to pull up this ticker thing? Yeah. Their market caps are like 20% of EXPs. And here's the fascinating, and again, Inman talked about this today. I thought this was a really cool article. They were talking about the fact that what's happened is all these other franchises and traditional real estate models are all they're essentially being valued the same way. I don't know what the multiples are. It doesn't matter. They're all basically, if it's this company or that company, you're going to trade for the same amount. You're going to be worth the same amount as these other companies. There's really Redfin would be an exception, but EXP is also an exception. So if an EXP is starting to trade as a tech company does, and when it truly is a tech company in essence. And so when that starts to happen, you're going to see the EXP, the equity and all the agents who have shares in the company, that's going to be just the next trajectory upwards, along with agent count. So you have the ticker symbols in front of you?
Well, what's funny is we look at it, Remax is worth $1.173 billion right now as we're doing this. Let you think that. Let's just give them 1.2 billion. Realogy, 1.6 billion. Okay? EXP, 5.6 billion.
But I mean, when I think about that, and I think,
right,
this is an idea that Glenn had probably on the back of a napkin in 2007. And look what he's created. And look how many people he's helping. And look how many millionaires he's helping to create. It's exceptional.
Well, and I think Glenn and I have talked about this before. I think phenomenal. You guys read all the business books, or I listen to a lot of TED Talks and all this stuff. I mean, I'm constantly growing. I'm just trying to get better every day of my life. Is out of the hard times come the best models. I mean, when you really have stress, it's okay to have that tension and stress. It's okay. You should live through it. But that's when you're going to have those aha moments. That's when you're going to, let me tell you, I tell Glenn all the time, everybody says, well, it's 5 years old when you found them and they only had 400 agents. I said, the 400 agents are the hardest part.
Yeah, for sure.
The first 5 years of 400 agents without giving up, without going, oh no, it isn't working. And by the way, no debt. I mean, when I met Glenn, he goes, Gene, we're doing this with cash flow. We are not. And I go, Glenn, I love you, man. Because as a business person, you don't want to have debt. We don't have zero. Now, after 11 years, we built this company with cash flow. Think of that. Now, I admire Glenn and Jason so much to not give up. I mean, a lot of people, I've been doing this for 5 years and there's 400 agents. I guess I shouldn't be doing this. I guess the model hasn't worked. Yes, it has.
Well, can you imagine back in those formidable years where you had to explain the model to people? This is so, I mean, as far as people's acceptance of technology, that could have been very well 1,000 years ago, right? I remember when Julie and I aligned 2 years ago, basically 2 years next month, we were still getting the question, what's EXP? People didn't know what it was. And I had to really learn it to understand it. It really isn't that complicated. But at the end of the day, I hardly ever hear that anymore. Like never. I can't tell you the last time I had someone ask me, well, what's EXP? I hear you guys talking about it on your podcast, whatever. What is it? And I don't get that anymore. Brokers don't, you'll have some markets where there's not a lot of EXP agents yet and things like that where people won't be familiar. But all they got to do is fire up the Google machine, right? And they're going to read article after article like the article Inman just wrote, talking about how EXP is just getting started. And so it's wonderful to be part of this, but there's the intangibles too, right? Mm-hmm. So Julie and I talked about this on the show. You are the one that was holding that event in San Antonio where Julie and I drove down.
Yep.
And, being in that room and in that environment, I don't know how many people were there, 100 maybe? But being in that room was something I'd never experienced before, truthfully, and this sounds a little hokey, but it's true, outside of church. Because and I'm not trying to sell people into a religion or a cult, so listeners, if you're going to be skeptical, then you're not going to hear what I'm trying to say. There was a sense of, normally when you're in a real estate environment, there's just a bunch of stress. There's a bunch of people that are anxious. There's just a bunch of, butt sniffing and, the way dogs do it and all that. But it wasn't that environment. The environment was something that I never experienced before in real estate where people felt they were confident. But I don't know what the word is. They felt like when you give somebody the path forward and how they can be financially free, where they don't have to worry about their house payment and their car payments, where they could just maybe create, it doesn't matter how much money it is, $3,000, $5,000 a month. Right. When you show them how that happens, and then and how relatively simple it is, truthfully, especially with the company growing like it is, that is such a stress reliever for people that they can't intellectually and emotionally conceive it. They can't actually feel it, right? And to be in a room, like we did a series of podcasts about this, how everyone walks around with this 800-pound gorilla on their back. And it's not until that gorilla starts to let go of you with his fingers, his big gorilla hands letting one finger go at a time. It's not until you feel the weight lessening a little bit, do you realize what an omnipresent burden that's been on your life. And it's fascinating to me how, like, the question isn't how will your life change if you're, rich, where, your money works for you, you no longer have to work for your money. It's not it's what won't you do different, right? So how will you think differently? How will you live differently? How will you interact with people differently? How will you value your time different? What books will you mentioned TED Talks, right? Oh. So when you don't have that omnipresent sense of financial dread, which is really what it is, it's a sense of dread, especially for real estate agents, because this transactional income constantly, right? When that's gone, that environment, when I was with you in that event, when I saw all those people who maybe had gotten there financially or were on their way there, that was something incredible. That's what sold me, frankly. Because for Julie and I, it was the continuation of what our mission was, which is similar to yours, right? Making agents' lives better. I mean, those are our people, right? Those are the people that God put in front of us that we're supposed to take after. That's the bottom line.
That's right.
For whatever reason, those are the people, right? And that's the path we've chosen, and that's we basically dedicated our entire adult lives to that. But to see what Glenn created, where like Julie and I can educate him and motivate him and get him into action. But what Glenn created with that model is he created a way to actually take what our vision was and take it to the next level, right, which is helping them create financial security that many people in their lives never experience. I don't know how else to express it. I mean, that really, it isn't a magical experience when you're around people, agents in particular, that don't have that sense of, that dreadful feeling that they don't even know that they have.
Well, you think about it, our industry has been so owner-driven for such a long time that I was always looking for owners. I sold franchises for a living. So I'd come to Tim and Julie and go, boy, they're talent. I can't wait to talk them into buying a franchise, because it was so owner-driven. And I told even Glenn, I said, Glenn, who's going to build this company? I got to go find owners. The first couple months I was here, I'm going, no. I'm just looking for good real estate agents. And if I give them the opportunity to grow the company, rather than an owner, get out of the way. That's why instead of having 10,000 agents at the 2020, we're at 42,000 agents. Why we blew it, because I went, well, Gene, it's just because I had old tapes. I call them old tapes. My old tapes were, well, you got to go after owners. You have to go. Mm-hmm. And it was just old tapes. It was just drilled into me. You better find leaders. Well, guess what? Susie over here, who's selling $2 million a year as a leader, and she knows people. And I have people texting me now, of course, with the stock at over $80 a share, going, Gene, you changed my life. I can't believe it. And I'm just telling you, Jim, they're normal agents.
Oh, I know. That's what I was trying to express.
They're just, selling $2 million a year,
right?
$3 million a year.
They're just normal people that are just doing their jobs and going to their kids' softball teams. They had no big aspirations or plans. What they're smart enough to do is make the move to align with the EXP. And then they talked to 3 or 4 people, and then 3 of them got it, and then they and then it's so funny to run into people that have relatively large revenue share, that when you talk to them, they really had no plan to ever grow a revenue share group. It just sort of happened because people are wanting to join EXP. The question is now essentially, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you join? What's standing? And there's a lot of emotional reasons why, like people believing they need bricks and mortar and things like that.
Well, let me give you an agent. There's a really good agent that we got from Remax. She was so sweet. I won't say her name, but she goes, Gene, I'm not going to recruit. She says, this is in the beginning. This is like 3 years ago. She goes, I am not going to recruit. I just want to come over here and sell homes. I go, cool. She goes, but I love that KV core. She goes, that KV core, I'm going to really get into that. And so we got her training, and she's a couple weeks later, she's getting leads. And she goes, oh my God, I can't handle all these leads. So she started calling her ex-Remax buddies saying, do you guys need some leads? And they go, what do you mean? She goes, well, I've got tons of leads. I got too many leads. And they go, how are you getting these leads? And she goes, well, I'm doing this. So I see her at one of the lunch and learns. She's already attracted 10 people from her old company. She goes, but Gene, I'm not going to recruit. She goes, I'm not going to recruit. I said, wait, 10 people have joined. She goes, yeah, but they're joining because of KV Core. They're joining because of KV Core. And it's funny, people forget we're about sales first.
Yeah.
We're about sales first. And we've talked a lot about the residual income, the rev share or the stock. But really we're about sales. And she goes, I can't, of course, then she started getting the rev share. So she's got 10 people over and she started getting, she goes, this is pretty good. So It's because, and I tell people, I don't sell them on the rev share first. I sell them on the fact that you're going to sell real estate here.
Oh, definitely.
And you're going to sell real estate and you're going to acquire stock. You're going to sell real estate and you're going to acquire stock. And they go, what do you mean? How do you acquire stock? And I said, well, there's 5 different ways. You get stock on your first sale every year. Woohoo! You get stock when you cap. You get stock when you attract an agent. Oh, and you can take 5% of your stock. This is the beauty.
Your commission.
And buy stock, 5%.
At a discount.
At 10% discount.
Yeah.
Hello, what's wrong with this? Mm-hmm. So I said, just get involved. And they just do it. Of course, then we've got an icon program for the top producers. And they get their whole cap back in stock. But when I look at the stock program, we have not touched that in 6 years. What's so exciting about it is we kind of invented it together, Glenn and Jason and I. They had some of it set up, and then I added the icon and some other stuff because I want to go after top people. And we just put it in place, and now we don't even think of touching it because guess what? We want all of our agents to own stock.
So this is you just brought something up, and this is counterintuitive. So when Julie and I first got involved about 2.5 years ago when we were meeting in Georgetown, Texas, I was worried that there would be too many, at least it was a stupid thinking, but it's what it was, that once agents start creating enough passive income, that they'll stop selling real estate. And I discovered that the exact opposite is true. Because when they're becoming wealthy on this, passive ways that Glenn and you and Jason created, they actually are more motivated to sell real estate. They're actually more excited to go out there and help people, not less. So it's counterintuitive because people would think, well, if you take the financial monkey off their back, they won't ever be motivated again. They're more motivated because now what they're doing with the money is they're doing more things with their lives. They're donating it. We know people that are, you guys were just writing a stack of checks to different charities that you guys are doing. Right. That's what your wife was just doing. And Julie and I do that every year in different ways. And so the reality of it is it makes you freer to essentially live a rendition of your life that you never would have maybe had the opportunity to because you were spending too much time just trying to make ends meet. And that's what's exciting. And selling I remember there was this gal named Duval, and I don't remember her first name, but I met her at a Howard Britton thing in the 90s. And her husband, Jim Duval, who's passed away, was a real legit billionaire, and Marianne Duval. And she was selling in Florida, and she gave all of her money away. So Howard's doing this interview with her because you remember Howard,
right?
And he was doing his interview, and then she goes like, "Yeah, I sell a house and I just donate all the money." And Howard's like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I don't keep any of the money. I sell houses because I enjoy it, and then I donate all the money. And these are the places I donate." So what happened is her motivation wasn't to pay the bills anymore. Her motivation was to earn more money so then she can help more people. And that's in alignment with basically how all of us are hardwired, is to be in service to more people, and that's the overriding gift that this model has created for so many people, which is really incredible to be part of, especially now that it's just literally starting to really take off.
That's what I was going to say. We're just starting.
Yeah.
What's exciting is now that you have people that have been doing it for 5, 6 years, or 3 years, or 2 years, it just builds. We're not going to stop. We're going to change the industry forever. Because you got to be virtual. If you're not virtual, if there's a company out there right now that's not virtual, they're thinking about what they got to be virtual.
For sure, and they can't really. It's difficult for a bricks and mortar franchise thing. How are they going to pivot?
Yeah.
They can't.
They can't. So we were way far ahead there. That's why when I was really attracted to Glenn in the beginning, because I'm not techie. I'm a salesperson. I admit it. I sold real estate for a long time. That's what I am. And I'm a business person, but I didn't know this tech. How are we going to go virtual? And then I see this avatar thing, and I go, wow, cool. See, I didn't think like that. I thought maybe small offices. I think if you think of the franchise world, a small office in every major city. I actually thought of that. And then I thought of all this before I met Glenn. But what's really funny, I couldn't execute. So him executing for 5 years before I met him, and having 400 agents. And by the way, we only started the corporation in 2013. See, that's one thing most people don't realize.
It was private. Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
He did a reverse merger on a Canadian company in 2013. He says, Gene, he goes, I wasn't thinking big enough. See, Glenn did it from 09 to 13.
Privately held.
Yeah. And then he went, no. And that's what I love about Glenn, because we're constantly thinking, how can we do it better, bigger, and just Glenn thinks like that. And he goes, man, I wasn't thinking. He went to some seminar and they said, you're not thinking big enough. He goes, you're right. Got to do and that I would not be here if it wasn't for the corporation.
They used to call those reverse IPOs, basically, where you
Right.
buy a publicly traded company.
Right.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's like 13 cents a share, it's 18 cents a share. But everybody laughed at us for years, right? Until May 21st, 2018, when we got uplisted to NASDAQ. And ever since then, 2 of the top agents in the nation called me that day. That I called in the beginning, literally top, that for other companies, that you guys are legit.
So I want to
Let's
ask you
talk
some
again.
personal questions.
Sure.
And you can wave me off because I can't see you. So you were, I'm really curious about, so you and Susan were at the points in your lives where you guys were basically set for life. And you didn't have to basically strap on your body armor and go and be downrange and get back into battle. Right? Mm-hmm. You didn't. And the reason I admire this so much, truthfully, is because I'm 50. And I really, really am attracted to people who are essentially give themselves second, third, and fourth, bites at the apple as they get older. I think that's incredible. When you see a president who's, chomping at the bit in their 70s and their 80s, I love that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this sort of, you and I were talking about this just today. People have these preconceived limiting belief notions about themselves where they think when they reach a certain age, like you were telling me your story when you lived in California, how you go to these, when you were a kid in the 50s and 60s, how you go to these retirement areas. And I was just joking with you that those people that were in those places were probably in their 40s and their 50s. And, their belief is that 40s and 50s, you sort of just hang up your spurs. And a lot of people still believe that way. Mm-hmm. And being coaches and writing books and doing our podcasts, we will often run into people who say, I had pretty much given up on thinking big and having any kind of aspirational thoughts in my mind, right? You've never been hanging up your spurs type. I don't know you well enough to say that for sure, but I'm just get that impression. But you told me you loved this idea and it was inspirational and you loved all of it. But what is it about Gene Frederick that caused you were essentially 59 or 60 when you decided to basically go back into battle, right? Mm-hmm, so Can you take us back there to maybe inspire other people that are at that same point in their
I
lives?
would say this. Number one, I had to convince my wife, right?
I'm familiar with this.
You guys, anybody with a spousal unit, as I say, out there, I thought, how am I going to convince Susan? Because again, at that time we had raised 5 kids. At that time we had 4 or 5 grandkids. Now we have 9. But I said, how am I going to convince Susan? Because you do have those preconceived notions. It's really weird.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, how you're supposed to be at a certain age, and now you're supposed to relax and go backwards.
Right.
And I said, Susan, I read, and she goes, what? And I said, I'm the exact same age that Colonel Sanders won when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. She goes, what do you mean? I said, he lived another 30 years, and I'm going to live another 30 years, and baby, we're going to rock this thing. And she goes, okay. And thank heaven I'm married to Susan, because, most people would have just said no. We've got enough coming in. That's human nature, though, to not take risks. And quite honestly, the first year I did not make a lot of money at EXP. I expected not to make a lot of money, by the way. But the bottom line is she believed in me, and I got to fast forward 2.5 years later. We're in Thanksgiving, and I love Thanksgiving, guys. I know we're at the Christmas season. I love Christmas too, of course. But Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because we get all the family together, and we all go around and we have to say what we're thankful for. And it's fun to hear it from a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and all our kids. And the last person to speak was Susan. And Susan said, I'm thankful that EXP worked. And you think about it, even though we did it 2.5 years later, the monkey that you talk about was off our back.
So let me drill, can I drill down on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what, and again, this is just,
Sure.
Tim coaching psychology. But what I've noticed is a lot of times, especially in men, this doesn't happen in women, men will get that monkey off the back just a little bit, and then they go through destruction mode and put that monkey back on. And they'll usually do it through some kind of dumb thing in their marriage, or they'll do it through financial things. And I'll just tell a very abbreviated story. So there was a great book, I don't remember the name of it. If Jules was here, she'd of course remember it. It was about an astronaut, a Canadian astronaut. It was written a couple of years ago. And the gist of it, part of the chapters in the story, he was talking about the fact that he was, and all of his guys that were wanting to become astronauts, the best of the best. Their entire lives, they're always the front of the class, the 4.0s. They're always the smartest, the brightest, always got the pretty girl, always basically the whole thing. And then these guys, this is the profile of most of these guys who go to, try to become astronauts. And then they become fighter jocks. All these guys are former fighter pilots, and they're the best of the best and all the rest of it. So they, for the most part, it's not like they haven't had to work, but they've had some let's just call them genetic, advantages that maybe other people haven't. Can we agree all to that? Like, I'm never playing basketball, right?
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So they were obviously the best of the best for all kinds of reasons. So then they go to astronaut training school. And these guys in astronaut training school were just like I just described, but for the first time in their lives, they're having their asses kicked. For the first time in their lives, they're basically out of control and they're being challenged. And they never developed the system to handle having to essentially struggle. Now, again, I'm not trying to downplay the efforts that they made to get where they were, but I'm just saying for the most part, they were used to being the best of the best, and the world's seeing them as the best of the best. Now they're going through this astronaut training, which is like the most brutal, nasty, horrible training you could possibly ever go through. He talks about it in his book. And like to a person in his astronaut training class, they all basically got divorced. They all created these problems in their lives because for the first time ever, they weren't easily passing through the rungs of life. And the interesting thing is I see that same type of behavior happening with agents who become successful. And you've seen this too. If you think about this, obviously, we know tons of people. I'm sure we know thousands of people in common. And they create these levels of success for themselves and then they destroy them. You understand? Financially, maritally, health-wise, because they're not comfortable not having that pressure on their back. Their software, their preconceived notion of themselves is they have to be the person in the struggle mode. And if they're not for the first time, they're so unfamiliar with the reflection in the mirror that they've got to put themselves back to that. Do you understand what I'm trying to express?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a guy thing a lot.
I think so, too.
I do. I don't know why I can feel that. When you were talking like that, I could understand, I've got to provide.
So that's what I'm asking you for the listener's sake. So you were in your late 50s, early 60s. You decided to basically go back, and you did put a lot at risk because you did, work your butt off. You did travel all over the place. You, up until COVID, you still were. I don't even want to know what your frequent flyer miles are. It's crazy.
Yeah. I was kind of all over the place, and I also think, well, you know what? That's okay though. And when I say that, it's okay. If you want to accomplish something history making, you've got to be out of balance for a while.
Definitely.
And I told Susan, I said, we've done this before in our marriage, right? When I started the other 6 franchises, we put our hands together and said, honey, I'm going to have to fly out. I'm going to have to do it. Life's going to be out of balance for a while. Then I started 7 franchises in like 3 years.
But where from you, and maybe you can't, maybe you've never thought about it like this before, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But where did you muster that when the world was telling you, for the most part, this is the time of your life when you don't basically decide to be out of balance? Where'd that come from?
I don't know. It's just maybe it's just me, and I tend to think too. I'm never going to stop growing. I'm never going to stop growing.
So that's the essence of it, right there.
Yeah. In other words, if you ever stop growing as a human being, I mean, I listen to tons of TED Talks. I don't know about everybody on here, but since I'm not traveling around like I used to and everything, I'm listening to every, Tim and Julie Harris podcast. I'm listening to so many podcasts and TED Talks because I want to be the best human being I possibly could be, and I want to help people. And I think my big why, somebody asked me 20 years ago, this is 20 years ago, when are you going to retire? I mean, I love that question. I said, what do you mean, define retirement? And they go, well, I guess it's when you have enough money to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, and you're with whom you're doing it. And I looked right at them 20 years ago. I said, I'm retired now. And they go, what do you mean? I said, I'm doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whom I want to do it. And one of my buddies was sitting there, and I go, I'm retired now. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm retired now. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm with Tim Harris and Julie Harris on their
lovely
podcast.
Puerto Rico, overlooking a beautiful harbor, and the sun coming in.
And I'm sitting here going, well, wait, when are you going to call it quits? For some reason, I don't know what all the books have been written. It's just, you've got to, I hope I never hit that.
It's complacency.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the common element I've seen with anybody. If you read all the books and the TED Talks and know people, it's almost like their fear is becoming complacent. Their fear is not always constantly improving. But it's fascinating, the psychology, right? So when people say, I'm going to stop, I want to just basically get to the point where I can quote unquote retire, where I'm no longer making a contribution to the world, where I'm just basically going to kick back and just watch the days go by, that's when you start to lose everything you have. So the lesson, I think, in that, and I'd be interested to know your take on it, is actually becoming complacent is impossible even if you think you're wanting to, because everything around you is going to continuously changing. Your body, your finances, your health, your relationships, your spirituality, your education level. So if you ever try to just basically stop always improving, that's when you actually lose what you already have.
The word I see a lot in our kind of culture in America is I've never used the word maintain. When I hear the maintain word, I've heard it all my career. You get real estate offices get to a certain size and the guy goes, I hope we maintain this profit. And in any company that wants to maintain, or even in your relationship, you and Julie got to constantly work on that relationship to get better and better. But wait, we're going to maintain the relationship we have now. And it just doesn't cut it. So I find myself, anytime I hear myself going, I just want to maintain this, I go, no. I'm going to grow. I'm going to get better. It's really weird. My mom was a psychologist type master's degree in counseling. So I like that stuff. I like that. Why are we striving to get better? Well, you know what? That's what you should do in life. There's no reason you shouldn't strive to be better every single day. But, and everybody kind of thinks it's money. Money has nothing to do with it. It's like I want to be the best human being. I want to be the best dad I could ever be. I can't wait to do some investments with my son and my daughter. And I'm excited. We're going to go, I got to tell you about it when we get off, but we're doing some investments that I'm really excited about. Because why? Because I get to do them with my son and my daughter. That's the fun part of life.
But the first leg is getting, if you, or listeners, if you're trying to translate all of this, and hopefully you're getting something from this because I am. I love sitting here with him. But the first leg is if you can get that financial burden off your back so you don't actually have to feel that omnipresent sense of having to basically worry about your bills. That really, if you can get that gone from your life, that's where you start. This is the fun part of being around thousands of people who are going through this transformative process themselves. Where they don't have that omnipresent burden anymore, at least not at the same level of intensity. And then the people that they're starting to become, the thoughts that are now entering into their lives, the things that they're involved in their lives that they never would have had the opportunity to be because they were so burdened with that 800-pound gorilla. Maybe now the gorilla is only 400 pounds. And maybe in another 2 years, the little, SOB is going to be 50 pounds and then it's going to be gone, whatever. But being on that path, for most people, is motivational. Being on the path to know that they can actually be free, that's what I think is this real special je ne sais quoi secret sauce of EXP.
Well, think about it, Tim. All our lives, and again, love the David Ramsey stuff. Okay, pay off all your bills, that's fine. Cool. Well, who thought of that? The people from the Depression.
Yeah, definitely.
The people from the Depression. I mean, my parents came Depression babies, my grandparents. So there's 2 generations of Depression people that we were raised by. How pay off all your bills, pay off all your bills. I got news for you. You and I have affected more people's lives at EXP than David Ramsey ever has. You know why? Because we're on the income side. Because the first thing David Ramsey says on all his on his shows, I've listened to him. He goes, how much money are you making? I can't teach you to pay off all your bills until I find out how much money you're making. And the person goes, well, I'm making $5,000 a month. Well, I can't really do much for you. But if you're making $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month, $40,000 a month. Oh yeah, dude, we'll pay off those bills really quick. So if you guys are, what I've switched, and I've actually worked on Susan over the years, because Susan grew up definitely Midwest, just like you, just Youngstown, Ohio, right?
Yep.
Definitely Midwest. Mom lived in the same home they always grew up in, right? All her lives, And I look back on it as like, pay off all your bills, do this. Why? I tell her, I said, I don't want to pay off all my bills. She goes, what do you want me? I want to make so much money. I've been after this for 25 years. By the way, I started this in 1995. I told Susan, I said, I don't want to look at a bill. She goes, what do you mean? I said, can you pay the bills? She goes, yes. And I said, honey, you pay the bills, I'm going to make the income. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make up so much income that the bills I don't care about.
Well, I'm going to touch on that because you and I we had a conversation 2 years ago about that. But the thing is the other thing that's changed that's truly bizarre, that's basically made you even more right, frankly, is that inflation and real estate values. And you can buy. You're going to pull the phone off on your hand. Yeah, the inflation of that we're seeing in real estate prices are going to more than cover the cost of the loan. So you can get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage right now for less than 3%. I mean, honestly, why the hell would you have the house paid off? Especially in most of the country, the houses are going up by way more than the cost of your loan. So the inflation is actually paying your mortgage for you. Don't pay the house off. If you're in the position to pay it off, don't pay it off. Now that is bizarre for me to even hear those words coming out of my mouth. Because Julie and I have always been, they pay your crap off.
That's right.
But it really doesn't really make sense. But I don't know how we circled in and talked about this, but the truth is that once you have, what you're talking about, I think is from your own perspective of your own wealth building path. And you're now looking back and giving advice to us normal people.
You can only connect dots looking back. I love that saying. You can only connect dots looking back. You can't connect dots looking forward.
Right.
I don't even know what tomorrow's going to be like. I can't do the dots forward. So looking back, the best thing I ever did was kind of convince Susan, we don't have to pay everything off, honey. Why? I said, we're going to make so much money that we are going to fly. It was only a couple of years ago. Let's just fly first class all the time, honey. She would call me and say, well, should we do coach or first? I said, honey, quit calling. Just quit calling. Just do first class. You know why? Because the room, now you talk to her, she won't sit, because the room, it wasn't it was just the freedom. So what extra income?
He means the room and the seats, guys.
The room and the seats. Yeah, the room and seats, because Susan, but here's what I'm going to tell everybody. All our lives we've been taught the wrong way, that we should just pay off everything. I got news for everybody on this podcast. If you pay off everything, do you still have to pay your taxes on your home?
Yeah, right. And well, here, think about this. Especially in this bizarro parallel universe that we're coming into. Those of you who have student loans, Julie and I paid our student loans off our first year in real estate when we were early 20s. With 43 grand, we paid them off with a profit we made from selling houses our first year. But they're going to start doing some student loan forgiveness that's going to make it so that people like Julie and I were not necessarily smart, because they start doing student loan forgiveness. Why would you pay your student loan off? Look, this is not financial advice that you would normally have, but with the Fed printing this much money, was it $939 billion just yesterday or day before, and all this money is going to be trickling out into the economy. It's going to cause really massive inflation. Some people are arguing against that, but thus far the train seems to have left the station on the people that are believing in the inflation side, and that's going to continue. So that actually leads to kind of an interesting conversation, I think. So we're rolling into 2021. And Julie and I are working, right? Aren't you glad to have? Julie's got a really funny joke. I wish I could remember it. It's something like, the only problem with 2021 now is now it can drink. It's legal. So who knows what's going to happen, right? But the truth is that it's essentially rolling into this year. I've been looking, and Julie and I have been looking to do a balanced predictions podcast. And I can't come up with one, because I just come up with, and look, I'm an optimist. Anyone, a salesperson, you better be an optimist. But the truth is, I cannot find a single reason not to believe that 2021, and really probably for the next 3 to 5 years, is going to be exceptional for the real estate industry. Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, of course, I missed it in March and April when we all thought it was going to go
for sure.
Right.
But who knew?
Who knew that we really were going to do a check mark type recovery?
At least housing did.
Yes, housing did. Interest rates are the key. What people don't understand is buyability. The ability to buy a home. If the interest rates continually stay low, which they're supposed to be,
they made a commitment. The Fed made a commitment through 2023,
right, that
they're going to keep rates super low, which means they're going to keep rates super low forever.
Yeah,
they're not going to raise rates.
No, so without raising rates, I'm refinancing this house right now. Why? Because I want to get money out. Everybody goes, why? And I said, you have it paid off. I go, no. I want that money in my hand because the interest rate is so low on that.
And you can invest this money and do something else with it.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Right. It's a bizarre, once in a lifetime set of circumstances that's going to make it so that more people, if they're not in that old software fear mode, they're actually going to be able to create more opportunities for themselves. Financial is what I'm referring to, but for their real estate customers too. If you understand the opportunities that are presenting themselves over the next, phase in this economy, be incredibly opportunistic, because the wind is totally at your back. It's when you, like Julie and I, again, we're researching this because we want to do a really good job on this podcast. Yeah. I'm trying to find one little granular thing that would lead us to some kind of breadcrumb that the housing wasn't going to be a home run for the next foreseeable future. I can't find anything. Can you think of anything?
No, I can't. And I read all the stuff too, and we're all trying to figure it out. But it's the interest rates are the key to me.
That's definitely true.
The interest rates are the key to me. If it's affordability, right? The affordability index that I looked at all the time, it's still just so doggone inexpensive to own a home. Why would you lease? Why would you lease right now? You're missing out on the inflation. You're missing out on the appreciation on those homes.
Right. So people conflate that word inflation and appreciation. Right. But I mean, for now, you can use inflation or appreciation. The reality is the truth is the output's the same. Your asset goes up in value.
Right.
Right. But there's other things that are inflating too. Where it gets scary, just around the bend on the inflation thing, is when the inflation starts to really creep its way into commodity prices, food, gas, things like that. Because then it becomes harder for people to feed their families. And at that point, then we're around the bend on the. Then we enter into this other area called hyperinflation, which I've not run into a single person that believes that will happen. But in the interim, agents, if you're listening, if you're feeling in any way pessimistic about your future in the next 3 to 5 years, you got to set that aside. A little natural skepticism is fine, but you've got to see this as your greatest opportunity of your lifetime, no matter what your age is, to put yourself in a position to help, however many people you allow yourself to help, and frankly, just possibly set yourself up for the rest of your life financially.
I mean, I'd be calling all my past clients and going, "Hey, look, why don't we just refi right now?"
It's not like the question. The question is, wouldn't. What wouldn't you be doing, right?
Yes.
Everything.
Everything.
You're going to do everything, right? And people say, well, there's no listings. Well, no, there are tons of listings. And, January is about to roll around. Everyone should be looking in their MLS to see for the first, week in January how many expireds there were. There's no expireds in my marketplace. Yes, there are. Go back a year, see how many of those expireds pop up, and, start doing some homework and research on this and go after the listings. Just little coaching hat just for a second. Is if you're predicating your financial future working on buyers, you're going to feel like you're in the blender. So our strongest advice, and Gene, you don't have to agree, but become a listing agent and do whatever it takes to become a listing agent, because listing agents in the future they always have been the whole ball of wax, but now more so, I think. And I can't think. So look, buyers are great. Buyers are a social experience. They're physical work. Working with sellers is mental work. You have to have a skill set. Get the skill set.
Well, the listings, you control your own time.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
But don't you think it's buying buyers? I mean, that seems so asinine. Buying buyer leads seems so asinine to me. No, just take one listing and you have to beat the buyers off with the stick.
Right.
I mean, right?
Yeah. Take one listing and sit up one open houses and you get all the buyers you want.
Yeah, exactly. And how many of those buyers have houses to sell and now you have some listing leads?
Right.
It all starts with learning how to be a listing agent.
Oh, most definitely. And I've taught farming forever. I believe in farming. I always tell people, they go, "What do you mean farming?" The homes don't move, except in East Texas. But the homes don't move, except on those wheels, we all know. But I laugh because they go, "What do you mean?" I taught farming forever. I've never coached a top agent ever that didn't farm an area, that didn't control homes, didn't know that market so well that they go, "Gene, I'm going to get 150 sales every year from those, 2,000 homes or whatever." I mean, they could give me their numbers. They were just unbelievable. They go, and then they just get bigger and bigger because they keep farming. Everybody says, well, farming takes a long time. Those are the old timers telling you it's doing that.
Well, if you combine it, farming, you're not just talking about postcards.
Right. No,
you're talking about getting to know the area. You're talking the niche agents are definitely the most profitable agents in the country. There's no doubt.
They know their market. They know it so well.
Exactly. And the market knows that they know it so well. So that's the reason that those people, gravitate towards being I'm thinking of Rob Johnson in Greenwich, Connecticut. I started coaching this guy 6 or 7 years ago. He's now the number one agent in all of Greenwich. And the way he's done it basically is he doesn't do any marketing or anything really. His company does it for him, some of it. But it's just essentially working people, getting to know people. He won't prospect. He'll call centers of influence and past clients. That's the extent of it. But look, guys, you have to be opportunistic. And I know this time of year, and it's perfectly fine, especially after 2020, that you want to sort of take an emotional breath. But don't have it be too long because 2021 is going to start. There's not going to be any sort of, ramping up into the new year. It's going to start. People, the buyers, the sellers, the market is not going to have any sort of reprieve rolling into the new year like it normally does. So be ready. Be mentally and emotionally ready. So as far as if you are talking with a new agent, right? Mm-hmm. And the new agent right now is asking themselves, what is it where are is this a smart industry to be in? I think that's a softball question. Mm-hmm. But what would be the mistakes that a new agent or any agent really, just expanding upon it, needs to be considering so they don't make? There's a lot of, and Julie and I rally again, you listen to our show. There's so many people out there that are selling false promises with fake ideas that sometimes agents get into this business, and we've actually graphed this, that when, back in the 90s, right, the average agent was in the business for a little over 2 years, and now that number is probably about a year and 2 months. And it's because they get into the industry and they never actually have developed the skill set to be of service to people. At the end of the day, they're doing the wrong things, and no one's telling them that.
Right.
And that's the reason, one of the big reasons that agent churn is increased, not decreased, in spite of the fact there's all these different ways for agents to generate business. What comes to mind?
Well, two things. My sister just got in the business 2 years ago in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was so much fun to kind of coach her through this and to see a brand new agent who's never sold real estate getting into it. But after 2 years, here's the problem with new agents. They don't give themselves time to know the market and know the business and provide that service. They expect to just know it right away. Could you imagine becoming a nurse and you're going to have to become the best nurse? You're going to get better and better and better and better. And to watch my sister go through that first year and struggle and go, man, I'm doing leases, I'm doing anything, I'm learning the market. Even though she lived there all her life, she went, I got to learn this. Second year, killed it. When I say that, became a capper. Third year now, started the third year, and I've always said this, the start of the third year, capped in like a month.
Did you sponsor her?
Yeah.
But
what I'm saying, guys, is to see her just go through that. I said, not everybody's a superstar the first year. Mm-hmm. I think the big misnomer is people are, I'm not doing as good as I was not a superstar the first year. I've heard you guys killed it. I did not.
So I love what you're saying because it's so true. Not. Everything in life worth having takes a hell of a lot longer than you think it should.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Well, look at
that is frustrating, but it's true.
Oh, well, look at RevShare. Same thing with RevShare. My first year in RevShare, I made $39,000. And I always tell people that, and they go, what do you mean? I said, that's all I was doing. I wasn't even selling homes. So you only made $39,000 your first year? Yes. But guess what? I'm willing to put in the effort to make it in the long haul. And that's the problem with real estate. People get in, they just think, you're going to make tons of money in the beginning. You got to learn your trade. Now, some people that come in with sales skills, that's awesome. You've already learned to be a salesperson. I was an accountant. So I got into the business and I didn't have those skills. I had to learn them. I had to read books. I had to go to Howard Britton. I had to go to all those guys and learn. And then all of a sudden, my second year, I did pretty good.
So I love what you're saying there too. A lot of these gimmicks that agents fall prey to are designed to make them think that they don't actually have to put the real work in for long enough to actually have a skill set that's marketable. And at the essence of it, that is, I think, right there, I agree 100%. That's the reason so many agents fail. Because no one's telling them that if they want ever-increasing levels of success, they have to do what they don't want to do when they don't want to do it at the highest level. And everything in life is so nerfed up nowadays. No one's really telling people the truth that, look, if you want to do anything meaningful in life, it really does take a lot of suffering. It just does.
But you should enjoy the suffering. A lot of people go, I'm failing, Well, enjoy the failure. What do you mean? I said, I got news for you.
You're on a mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody get in your way. I think that's the thing with EXP, coming back to Glenn and Jason. I saw in those guys, the look in their eyes was like, we're going to do this. And they've told me years later, I thought about that. We had dinner at Inman when we were, at Brad's event, and just us three. And Jason looked at me, he said, Gene, me and Glenn talked about it. We knew we would find you. We just didn't know who you were. And they really did. They said, we knew there was going to be someone like you. We just kept looking. And you know what? In your lives, as a salesperson, keep going. Don't let anybody tell you, because you didn't become rookie of the year, you're not going to be good.
You're not. There's no such thing as being too old, too young, too fat, too ugly, too not smart enough, too smart.
Right.
All this Mickey Mouse that basically people use as excuses not to actually live the best versions of themselves, and it's sad too. In real estate, it's mostly I'm not succeeding at a high enough level because other people have an unfair advantage. That's called life, right? There's always going to be somebody that has better, maybe they're born with a slightly silver spoon or no spoon at all. It doesn't matter. The reality of it is that there's no such thing as a level playing field. I've never come across a level playing field.
Oh my gosh. There's a few people better looking than you and I. Just a couple.
Yeah,
I don't know who they are.
No.
Yeah, Brent Gove. Brent Gove is.
Actually, you know what? It's funny. You saw him recently, right?
Yeah, he looks
He's
great.
Lost a ton of weight.
Oh, I love
him.
He's doing awesome.
He's looking dapper. He's rocking his little goatee. He's
that Brent Meister. But the coolest part is, look at Brent Gove. Just met him 4 years ago. I knew him at my old company, but I didn't really know him. He and I were on the cover of the magazine one time, the company we were with, and he goes, "Gene, you and I are on the cover." I said, "We were?" He goes, "Yeah, I got that magazine, man." But I laughed. I didn't know Brent. He's become just one of my best friends. When I say that, I don't understand why you guys are all worried about the past. Go strive towards the future. Make new friends, man. I'm just telling you, go make new friends today. Don't worry about keeping the old ones. And if they're not thinking as big as you are, we've talked about this before, go get friends that think big.
That's beautiful. So Julie and I, again, I love how you round the bend to perfect themes, because it's exactly. So it's the climbing of the ladder in essence, right?
Yeah.
And you go from one rung to the next, and what a lot of people do is they'll get to the same level where all their immediate friends and family are, and they don't go to the next rung because they don't know anybody up there. But the miracle of miracles is that the more you climb, the more people you run across that are a couple rungs above you that want to grab hold of you and pull you up. So I didn't know you 2.5 years ago. I didn't know Brent even, I didn't know anybody. I knew a couple of the guys in the EXP personally. Because Julie and I have just stayed focused on building our coaching business. We stayed focused when we sold real estate. We stayed focused on building our coaching business. We didn't, that was where our focus has been. Just writing books, doing just content, doing the best coaching program we possibly could. So we didn't do a lot of socializing and networking, and we didn't know all of you guys and all the rest of it. But in that same amount of time, to your point, we've made the best friends of our lives. We feel like we're part of an extended dysfunctional family, which is really what it is probably. But it's incredible. But the reason it's incredible is because everybody is on the same, they're climbing the ladder at different paces.
That's right.
You're higher up than, we are. But the reality of it is you're there and you're going to say, okay, here's what's next, here's what's next, here's what's next. And that's the miracle of being in an environment like this. This is the reason it really is. And this is how I truthfully feel. This is the last best business opportunity for probably everybody listening. Not the last business opportunity, but the last best business opportunity.
In real estate.
I agree completely. Because of the people that are already involved. And so for people to get involved in EXP Realty now, there's so many incredible people that are just there to help you. And that's not BS either. It's really true. Yeah. You can pick up the phone or message anybody you want to. You could message Glenn Sanford and he'll get back with you.
Yeah.
He'll message you back. He might just be a couple words, or he's going to actually put some thought into what you said because he liked what you had to say, and he's going to send a thoughtful response back. How many billionaires can you guys just chat up? I'm guessing not too many. Right? But that's incredible.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he is. He's the same guy I met, like I said, to circle back. But he's still thinking bigger. We have conversations. I'm on the board for the company, and we're still thinking bigger, 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 bigger. When I say bigger, bigger, for the agent.
Right.
For the agent. This is all about the real estate agent, not the owner anymore. The real estate agent, not the owner. And wait, the owner is the real estate agent. It is about the owner. But we're all that's so mind-boggling to me what has happened to our industry, and I'm excited to be part of it. By the way, a third of most of the realtors that you mentioned get out every year.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people go, "Well, I already missed the boat." I go, no. Do you know what NAR 30% go away every year and 30% come in? They go, "Really?" And I said, so a couple of years from now, that 30% that just came in, 20% of them will be our superstars.
Well, that's statistically correct. I mean,
Right.
that is the thing that's fascinating is how much that top agent, how they switch up. Once you're I understand completely. It's an interesting statistic though.
So once you understand that in our business, everybody
It takes 5 years on average to really have a meaningful real estate practice.
Right. So you go, well, shoot, just get after it, go sell homes, and you'll meet the new agents that are going to be up and coming. Well, how do I attract real estate agents? Well, just go out there and sell, and you're going to meet them.
The new agents aren't just the millennials. So millennials, I apologize if I just offended you, but some of the best talent getting into the business now are people that are in their 40s, in their 50s, that have done other careers, and the ones that are really fascinating to come across are the people that have been successful in other. I'm coaching a guy right now who went to Harvard, went to Yale. He was a fighter pilot in the Marines. I'm not going to mention his name. The guy's just absolutely amazing to talk to. And it's incredible person.
Wow.
Sells real estate in Charleston, South Carolina. He's very successful. He's in his 50s. He's basically, he's saying, you know what? I'm ready to recharge. I wanted to be back there in that, single seat. He was flying F-18s, Hornets. I want to be back. I want to experience what it means to be at that phase of my life where I'm looking to improve, where I'm really looking to take on new challenges. That's what it feels like to be involved in this company. You don't run into, I personally don't come across people that are negative. I don't come across people that are not in a mindset of trying to help other people. I'm sure there's little trivial Mickey Mouse that, it is what it is. It's a huge company now. But that's not the overriding. It's the excitement of everyone on this amazing, starship going to Mars for the first time. That's what it feels like. So anyway, I hope listeners that you can relate to all of that, because if you're not feeling that way, if you are feeling complacent in any aspect of your life, I hope you understand that that's a choice. You're making a decision to basically start to give up on aspects of your life that you are giving up too soon. It could be your health, it could be your relationships, it could be your spirituality, your education, it could be your wealth. Why don't you hit the hard reset button? Why don't you finally and this is the challenge I noticed that's really hard to get rid of the older you get, is because the old software, like we were originally born with original software, right, that our parents loaded. Maybe some of it was genetic, and then their parents loaded this set of software and this set of software. Well, as you get older, it's harder and harder to load more software. So your software updates don't come when you're younger. Yeah. I see our daughter, Zoe, she's 7. Oh. She's getting software updates every 90 days. I mean, she's going and talking and doing things that when the hell did you learn how to say that or do that? Or you just understood what mom and dad say? I guess we're going to have to start not saying things out loud in front of you anymore. But the older you get, those software updates, they don't happen so fast. They happen years and years, and then we try to resist them. We try to resist the new ideas. We try to resist, I got good friends, Gene. I don't need any new friends. Gene, look, we've been going to the lake forever. We don't need to travel to that far off place that maybe I would have wanted to when I was a kid. I'm okay with the way I look and the way I think and the books I read. I'm not quite ready for anything. No. Just, okay, right. That type of thing is fascinating, because that's how most people actually live their lives. And to me, I feel when I come across somebody like that, especially in a coaching relationship, I am excited because I can see what they can't see yet, because I'm a couple of rungs up than them, right? But at the same time, I feel unbelievably sad for them, because they're letting, moments, seconds, months, years go by in their lives that they can never get back, right? And I feel sorry for them, because they're just so stuck in believing that they've leveled off. But the thing is nobody has. None of you have. All of you are capable of such extraordinary things. And if you don't believe me, you need to meet Gene Frederick, because look what he's done in 5.5 years. Oh, that's not a good enough story for you? I mean, I'm not going to talk about what Gene's worth. It's on the it's on the file. I'm not going to say it because it'll make you uncomfortable, so I won't say it. But it's public information if you guys want to research it. Let's just put it this way: he doesn't need to be flying commercial anymore. If he chose to buy his own jet, he could. Right. And that you just gave me a weird look. But then you look at Glenn. You look at all these people. So look what they've been able to do in such a relatively short period of time. Why don't you guys align with people that think and act like that? Because that's essentially what EXP has become.
Well, and I got to thank Elizabeth Riley and Jill Liebernight for I always thank my sponsor, Elizabeth, saying, she said, can you check this out? I mean, just think. She had asked somebody else. She said, can you check it out? So I checked it out. And what if, when you were saying all those things to these people, which you guys got to take it to heart. I listen to Tim and Julie's podcasts all the time. They're just phenomenal, because they're down to earth and they're giving you real stuff. What if I would have just said, no, I'm comfortable.
Yeah, right?
I'm comfortable.
Me too.
I'm okay. You too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was hard for you. I mean, I remember those conversations
we had to meet 3 times.
Yeah, I know.
There was some arm twisting.
Julie was in.
Maybe it was 4. Oh, yeah, Julie was sold off.
Julie was in.
She's smarter than me, though.
But I look back on it and I go, change in our lives anytime. For some reason, as human beings, we resist change. We resist risk. I don't know. It's just innate. It really is. Maybe I don't know. It's from the caveman days or something. It's comfortable. We're not going to reach out. We're not going to go outside our comfort zone. I don't know what it is, but
it's a security thing. You just touched on it. It's basically it's the tribal thing, right?
Yeah.
It's our original software. And we don't want to break out of our tribe, because our minds tell us that's where we get our sense of security.
So I look at it now and I go, I love hanging out. Almost all my friends are half my age when I look at it, because they're the people that are, they just give me energy. Just so you know, for all you people that think, I'm hanging out with people that are just going, Gene, why don't we go do this? And now I'm going, yeah, cool. Why don't we go do that? So I'm investing in other things. I'm not just rental
Well, people
homes.
too. But
People.
not, yeah.
And the people are giving me energy. So I want everybody to know on this podcast that please don't just say, oh gosh, I'm comfortable. I want to maintain. Those words, when you start hearing yourself say them, run. Come
Totally.
on.
When you feel the feelings of complacency.
Right. Please.
So I'll tell you where we're going to get criticized on this podcast.
What's
Because
that?
So
That's
99% of the people are going to love it, but some people are not going to like the fact that we talked about money as much as we did. It's going to make them uncomfortable. What do you say to those people?
Oh, I don't understand anything. 25 years ago when I went to it, we've all had these down, whatever. 25 years ago, I can remember trying to get gas, and I searched my car and I found a dime. And I went in, I had no gas cards, I had no credit cards, I had no nothing. I mean, we've all been at that level. It's so funny when you tell these stories, but I said, I walked in with a dime at this Texaco. And I said, dude, I can't make it home. And the guy loaned me $5. And he says, dude, put $5 in. He says, I've never seen a dime. And I said, so I went home that day and I told Susan, I said, we're going to get rid of all our friends. I mean, this is one of those moments where I said, I'm getting rid of all my friends. I mean, you guys have, if you haven't done this, believe me. I said, we're getting rid of all our friends. I said, I'm going to make so much money. You pay the bills. I get emotional when I talk about it. I said, but I'm never going to have to just search for a dime again. And I said, so that was 25 years ago. And I look at what we've been through, and we've had other downtimes and things happen in our lives, but I want to be around the people that when you tell these stories, that I want you guys to feel it, that if you're down there, the only thing that can give you freedom is know that you can make so much money. I don't understand why we don't talk about it. We should teach our kids.
Totally.
If we can make so much money, the pressure, let me tell you, ulcers and heart disease, and everything comes from pressure.
Marital problems, the number one cause of
Everything.
divorce is basically financial issues. Health problems, financial issues. It's the 800-pound gorilla.
Yes.
And when that son of a bitch is off your back,
Oh.
even if he starts to let go, everything changes. That's the point we are hopefully making earlier.
I'm sure being an ex-bean counter, as I am, I'm an ex-accountant, that people freak out when I said, I don't know what our bills are. I've never paid a bill in 25 years. I don't know what they are. Do you understand? I don't even know how much the house payment is, or the car payment, or whatever payment we have. Why? Because I don't make no payments. Everybody goes, what do you mean? I said, I wanted that off my back, and I wanted to go make so much money that we're giving millions of dollars away this year.
I want to make a point.
You know what I mean?
To what you're saying, totally.
Yes.
But the reason that you are where you are, and it would be fun to ask you if you ever thought you'd be where you are financially. I have to think that hopefully the answer is yes. But the reason you are where you are is because you have helped literally tens of thousands of other people create wealth for themselves. So there's a direct correlation between the number of people you help accomplish their goals in life and the number of goals that you personally will be able to accomplish. It's a direct relationship. If you're not making the money that you want to make, if you don't have the lifestyle you want to have, if you don't have everything that you want in life, it's simply because you resist the idea subconsciously that there's a direct effort or the direct relationship between what you have and what you're experiencing, who your friends are, frankly, and the number of other people you've helped accomplish their goals.
No, there's no doubt in my mind. My still big why is I want to help agents, and I still want to help agents. You know how many car payments I've paid for agents? You know how many house payments I've paid for agents in my career, being a manager of a real estate office? Tons. I'm never getting them. I didn't expect the money back. You know why I didn't expect the money back? Because I knew they needed it. Now I can help them. I mean, $3,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $5,000 a month is life-changing for everybody on this call.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that sold me too, right there. That's
right there.
it.
And I know I can help them. So those 242 people that were making more than $3,000 a month in my old company, we're going to have hundreds and thousands of people making that. And now I can help them, and it just drives you.
Well, the goal for EXP, if I remember correctly, was 43% of all agents of the company will be making revenue share by the end of next year.
Right.
Something like that. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not the ones making the tons and tons of money. It's the ones that are, I think that's what drives all good brokers, because I've been a real estate broker since 1986. All good teams. You know, you coach a lot of the top teams. You talk to the top teams. I go, what drives you? Oh, my team members. I want them to, you know, I love the cop that you got a policeman. He didn't even know how to sell real estate, and I taught him how to sell real estate.
So that's a double-edged sword too, because it's the old thing of put your own mask on first, right?
Right.
So what a lot of people do is they'll sacrifice too much and they don't make any profit. In other words, the times get tough for the 3 or 4 months, and all those team members and all that brokerage and all those people that they've helped, there's no one there to help them. And that's one of the things we do bring to a lot of these relationships with our clients, is that you have to put your own mask on first. Because if you don't, and when times do get lean, you're going to be the one that suffers the most. And that's, again, a beauty of the model that Glenn created. Because Glenn actually had a real estate team, right?
Right.
He had a big success.
He was there.
What city was he? Where is
Well,
this?
it was in Bellingham, Washington. And just think, well, he was actually in about 4 or 5 cities. Mm-hmm. He was in Phoenix, Arizona. He had expanded, right? These big
expansion team thing.
Expansion team. He was one of the first ones at KW. But what's good about Glenn is he realized this ain't working.
Right.
See, that's why I said the downturn in 08 and 07, 08, 09, he went, okay, guys, we're going virtual. I'm going to figure this out. That's why if more people would have done it, we'd have more virtual companies. The problem is some of these people just kept making money, so they think they're doing well. In reality, the downturn caused a new company to form.
And the COVID, horrible virus, but look at the real estate's the only industry that really came out for the better as a result of COVID. And I'm not prideful in saying that, but it is a fact.
Right.
And then if you look at what COVID's done, it's changed the way that people think about everything. Name one thing that COVID hasn't changed with regards to how people work, where they live, how they choose to live. I mean, Jules and I just bought that cabin in Murphy, North Carolina. And Murphy, North Carolina has, from what I could tell, has never been, and we have a lot of coaching clients there who will correct me if I'm wrong, but it's never been a particularly hot market. Second, third home area, 2 hours from any major metropolitan area, basically. And now, Murphy, North Carolina, you cannot find a house for sale there. And the agents that we have coaching clients there, we ask them, what's going on here? It's not the locals. It's people coming in who maybe thought, one day when I'm a certain age, I'm going to retire in Murphy on a lake and I'm going to have this place in Appalachia. And now they're saying, you know what? I'm not waiting 20 years. I'm actually going to do something. I can work remotely. I have an internet connection there. I'm good to go. The companies are saying, yep, you can work remotely, live wherever you're going to live. And you're seeing for the first time, and since the Industrial Revolution, since the Industrial Revolution, you're seeing for the first time the essentially people not moving into the major metropolitan areas, out. And that's a trend that's clearly just getting started, because now people have freedom. And again, they're having the freedom to live where they want to live and live how they live. And on the other side of this, pandemic, and when we're having to pay the bills and all this money that's been pumped into the economy, cities and states are going to start raising property taxes. Cost of living in these very expensive areas is going to get even more expensive, and you're going to see those trends continue. Well, what other trend in real estate is going to be more assured than working with EXP? Because then you can, essentially you're working for a virtual company that was literally built for the market that is obviously maybe would have taken 10 years for EXP to be as irrelevant as it is now, but now it's basically going to the next level. And here's the other thing. EXP grew to 42,000 agents this year, and there were no live events. Everything was virtual, right?
Phenomenal.
There was no lunch and learns that weren't on Zooms.
No.
It was
No.
Now imagine as the pandemic starts to ebb and the dogs of war start to get released again and people can start doing events all over again, then you're going to see it. Not just, I think 100,000, in my opinion, 100,000 is not thinking big enough. I think it's going to be far more than that, just because people are underestimating the financial sting that agents have been feeling. And maybe before they would have said, I'm good, I like where I am, I like my bricks and mortar. But now they're coming out of this, they're realizing I need to maybe think in such a way that I don't have to ever be on my financial heels again, just like you did when it sounds like you were about 40. That was a little, for you, that was a huge financial pivot, emotional pivot. I bet you millions of agents around the world are going through that right now.
Oh. And
they're going to have to hang their licenses somewhere, and they're going to hang their licenses most likely with the company that makes the most sense, which is going to be EXP Realty.
I don't know about everybody on this podcast, but 10 months ago, I thought Zoom was what my granddaughter did on her bike. And 10 months from now, we're at the end of December. 10 months from now, you guys are going to know what Verbella is.
For sure.
Verbella has changed the way, that's why we're looked at as a technology company, right?
Well, not only that, but look what Glenn's done. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Right.
He's bought Success, the magazine.
Right.
There's going to be we're going to have essentially a search portal that's going to, compete with Zillow and Realtor.com, which is amazing. And where are those leads going to come? They're going to go to EXP agents. People aren't talking about that. That's obviously the direction it's going to go. So if you look at the technologies that Glenn was inspired to create for the betterment of the agent's experience in their own businesses, it's incredible. And just the acquisition of Success Magazine, if you think about that. Like when I first heard that, I didn't understand it. I liked it. I recognized the power of the old URLs and the search benefits, and certainly the Success brand is it's a magazine you see everywhere. But why would EXP buy it? And then I talked with a couple people, and they're like, this is why. This is what's going to happen. It's like, oh my God, that's genius.
I know.
I couldn't even put it together in my head, right? I mean, it's like when I was first looking into the EXP model. The reason I resisted, I told you this before, is probably my ego, but I was also jealous that I hadn't thought of that idea myself.
Oh, sure.
It was so good. It was so incredible.
I'm sure there's a lot of brokers thinking, well, I wish I would have done it. What's amazing to me is, nobody's going virtual like we are.
They can't. How can they do that? How can an existing company, unless they scrap what they're doing, actually compete with EXP?
Here's what they should do. They should call us.
Yeah, they should and merge. Why wouldn't they?
If any independent right now, of course, the franchises can't because they got franchise agreements.
Sure,
but any independent, which are 58% of the realtors,
which people don't realize is that the industry is still run by independents.
Right. Those people should be calling us. By the way, you and I've talked about this. I'm waiting for the first big independent to get it.
They will, because here's the thing that's interesting to me. Well, assuming they can rectify what to do with all their bricks and mortar locations, which is a bridge to cross. Which they could. But the fascinating thing, if you look at the profitability, and you look at P&Ls all the time as a retired accountant, basically, in a former life. But if you look at, for example, the profitability of these big brokerages, they're so small. 2-3%, you're considered a hero in the industry, right? That's the tiny ass margins. And then, now fortunately, the year turned itself around, but had the year been a really hard year, like it looked like it was going to be in the spring, those brokerages would have been living on smoke and mirrors and puffing. They had been dead and gone. And so if you've brokerages, if you're listening to this, small, medium, large brokerages, you just look at the numbers. You don't set aside your preconceived notions. Just look at the numbers, look at the math, and then ask yourself, not as a broker owner, I don't have that be your primary question. Ask yourself if even your best agents were presented with the value proposition that EXP represents, why would they say no? And if you then come to the conclusion that, of course, they're going to say yes, right? Of course, your best, most loyal agents, the agents you think for sure are going to go to battle for you, when you realize that they will probably say yes to EXP, then you better start thinking in terms of how can you align with EXP. And the funny thing is with these medium brokerages that I've had the honor and pleasure of working with you and moving over to EXP, their biggest issue is almost always keeping their name, their identity. Yeah. Because a lot of them are generational businesses, which I totally respect. It makes total sense to me. Well, but guess what, listeners? You can keep your name. Right? It could still be, Tim and Julie Harris Real Estate, brokered by EXP Realty. Right. You can keep all your branding. You can even keep your physical locations if you want to, So all these different things, it's just fascinating. Very exciting. Incredible time. So one last question, unless you can think of something else you want to talk about.
I don't know. I'm just kind of excited to be with you, my friend.
Yeah, me too. It's fun, isn't it?
It is.
I love it. A year from now, we're sitting wherever we're sitting. Inevitably, it's going to be Puerto Rico. There's going to be a beach nearby. Yep. We'll be fully caffeinated. I mean, all these things will be true, right? Yep. So what are the 3 things you want to be looking back upon that you want to say, these are the 3 things you can change the word from proud, but the 3 things I'm most proud of having accomplished in the last 12 months. What will those 3 things be?
I would say number 1, to me, I think we're going worldwide.
Definitely.
I mean, this is exciting me. We'll probably be in another 15 countries.
That's coming from someone from the board of directors, so maybe.
Sorry. Well, I don't know.
It's a guess.
It's a guess. It's just a guess.
Spitballing.
But to think that we'll go from 8 countries to over 20, let's say, in a year, to me, our worldwide expansion's just a year from now, it's going to explode us.
You got to be killing yourself in that sun, by the way.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
But here's my thing. I think when I look back a year from now, I just talked to a guy from, can't say the country because somebody might know who he is, but he says, I really don't know you guys on the world stage yet. And I said, isn't that cool? He goes, what do you mean? I said,
True.
This is cool. He goes, yeah. And he's so pumped up. And there's two guys that I'm meeting recently that, I mean, they're going to explode. So I think a year from now, definitely going to look back that we're going to, the same thing that happened in the U.S. is going to happen worldwide, where we had to explain who EXP was for a while. And then all of a sudden it's just going to go crazy. So a year from now, gosh, I just look back on it, making tons and tons of agents, like you said, the gorillas off their back. That excites me. Like you said, if you help a lot of people, I have so many people texting me now. Just imagine a year from me texting me going, Gene, you changed my life.
It's emotional. I don't want it to sound contrived to our podcast listeners, but when you get somebody and when you've changed their life, I mean, I'm not as many as you, obviously, but when I have these people, they're messaging Julie and I thanking us for simply having them switch brokers, right? That's really in essence, and then taking advantage of the opportunities that are at EXP, and especially at the end of the year, and they're being, in holiday mode, and they're, sharing screenshots of how much their stock is worth or how much money they've made from revenue share, or even, frankly, just the very fact that they made so much more selling real estate. Like, I have this great guy, and I know he's a listener, so I'll say his name, and he always likes it when I give him praise, right? Chuck Williamson.
I remember Chuck.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah. And so Chuck was, he's made so much more net profit this year because simply he switched EXP. Because his cap was $16,000. He pays it off by January 15th every year. He's always basically 100% with EXP because he's an icon agent. The amount of additional money he made this year was he was able to buy a gorgeous cabin on a lake. And it wasn't even really a cabin. For me to say it as a cabin is ridiculous. It was like this 3-story mansion. He texted me pictures and he said, I just bought a cabin on a lake, because he knew we bought that place in Murphy. And there's this ridiculously beautiful house with this great pier on this massive lake, which is so big, it looks like an ocean. You can't even see from the other side. And it was like, I did it from the money I saved from moving over to EXP. I mean, that's incredible.
Yep.
And stories like that, being able to experience people in this joyous, appreciative time in their lives is a true blessing.
And I think the third thing I'll look back on, I'll have more friends.
Yeah.
I look back on it every year I get more friends. I mean, we're going to do masterminds here. We're going to do, when I say masterminds, I mean, I love masterminds because and I'm going to have new friends. See, I look back on a year and I have so many more friends here than, you and I both moved to Puerto Rico at the same time.
You were here a little earlier than us.
A little bit earlier, but not much. But, when I look back on it, I go...
We should tell that story. That's a funny story.
Oh, my gosh, there's so many good friends here. It's like I go, golly, I didn't know them 2 years ago.
Well, let's tell the story. This is because the listeners might appreciate this. So we're sitting at the restaurant at the Sheraton Inn in Georgetown. And I'd heard of the benefits business-wise for moving to Puerto Rico before, but I hadn't really studied it. I just heard about it. And then we're sitting, having lunch with you, and then we don't even need to give the particulars of the numbers and whatnot.
Sure.
But he told us the advantages of moving to Puerto Rico, and we were looking for a place to move at that time because Julie's allergies had gotten so bad. Did I ever tell you about that?
Oh yeah, you told me.
She couldn't breathe. She only had 50% lung capacity. She was a mess. We had to move out of Central Texas. Yeah. And then when you said that, it was August or September that we actually moved. Because it was like, boom, I get it. There was nothing else more to talk about, and we just basically moved to Puerto Rico. Which has been been the hardest and one of the easiest things to have ever done because it's such a blessing. Puerto Rico is an amazing place.
Well, it's gorgeous. And my sister just left. She was here for 4 or 5 days. My sister grew up in Hawaii. She went to high school in Hawaii. And she says, this is prettier than Hawaii. And I sit there and I go, oh, no, everybody thinks of Hawaii as this is a jewel.
It is.
This is the jewel, and it's larger. I don't feel, of course, it's a large island, 3.5 million people, but the people are what make it special. The people are so friendly, and I just love it. I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah, me too. We're Puerto Rican.
We're Puerto Rican.
My wife's Puerto Rican.
I know.
My daughter's Puerto Rican.
And I just love to say it. And I go, I think it's because I grew up out west. I grew up out in Phoenix area, and everybody went to Hawaii on the west coast, right? I didn't realize on the east coast, everybody went to Puerto Rico. It was kind of their Hawaii. And then when I come out here and see the foliage, we walked the rainforest the other day, and the rainforest is so cool, and mountains in the middle, and of course we went snorkeling the other day and diving, and I just look at it and go, I'm blessed. I wake up every day and I walk the beach and take pictures of the sunrise, and I'm going to do it for the rest of my life.
You and your wife, yeah.
I keep sending them to you.
Yeah.
But it's It's really cool. You know what? You said, did you ever imagine making this much money or being worth this or whatever? Here's what I think. I don't really ever put a limit on my imagination. I've just always been like that. In other words, well, everybody, that's the problem too, is everybody goes, well, I want to make that much money. Well, then when you make that much money, what happens?
Destructive mode.
Right. So I really just want to live every day to the fullest, and it's really weird, kind of airy-fairy, but I want to be the best person I can possibly be every single day. And if I can do that, life's going to take care of itself, and there's so much abundance.
Well, so you're what the listeners I hopefully are taking from listening to you is you're the embodiment of understanding without even saying it, that the more people you help accomplish their goals
Right.
at a high level, the more of your goals you'll accomplish. And so what I'm taking from our time together, I already knew this about you, but I'm taking from our time together, hopefully our listeners are hearing it as well, is you don't want to stay complacent, because what's really driving you isn't the money. The money is the natural side benefit
Right.
of being of putting yourself in a position where you're constantly improving so that you can help more people.
Right.
That's the essence of it.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's what. So we talked about this at lunch too. There's 3 things every person needs in life. They need someone to love. They need something to do where they feel that they're contributing, and they need something to look forward to. And if you have all 3 of those things in abundance, then you have a wonderful life. If you're missing any of those 3 things, then you seriously need to maybe load in some new software. And I'm challenging all of you that the thing that you need to have to look forward to is what will come on the other side of you joining EXP, because that's going to give you more things to look forward to than you can possibly imagine. If for no other reason, you're going to basically be making more money than probably what you're making now with your commission splits and whatnot. But then as you expand your thinking and start seeing yourself capable of doing more, experiencing more, having more, then all of a sudden you're going to start really embracing the other things that Glenn created in this model originally. I hope that's a journey that you're willing to take on, because as Julie and I are fond of saying, there's the present self of you, there's the present Tim and Julie, the future Tim and Julie, and the past Tim and Julie. All the benefits that we have in our lives right now are because of past Tim and Julie, right? I mean, everything. Being here with you is from a decision that past Tim and Julie made. Everything around me is from the decisions that we made in the past. Well, we have to be making sure that we're never leveling off in the present format, because we're so ingratiated with the present version of ourselves. We have to be thinking, what will future Tim and Julie be wanting to thank past Tim and Julie for? And the present Tim and Julie making sure that we're not being complacent, so that the future Tim and Julie will not be wanting to kick past Tim and Julie in the ass. Does that make sense?
You got a lot to work up to, my friend.
Oh, I do, definitely. But I mean, you inspire me. I like to be around people that inspire.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
Sure.
around complacent people. Complacent people
No.
give me the willies.
Oh no, I'm around so many cool people here in Puerto Rico. EXP folks like yourself, right? We talk all the time, but also just other people from other walks of life.
I know Puerto Rico is incredible.
Oh gosh,
where we in Dorado, where we live, we trip across. Just yesterday we were golf carting, right? And coming one way is this guy named opposite of us was John Malden. Now here's a funny story. I met John Malden through another friend at a little beach restaurant in Dorado, and I had heard his name before, but I didn't really know who he was. Well, it turns out Julie knew who he was, because she's been getting his newsletter for years and reading it. And he's a financial guy. He's a money guy. And then now we've become friends with John Malton. So we stop him, as he's going one way and we're on the other on the golf cart, and we just exchange some niceties. And it's like, oh my God, I just talked with somebody who's basically a living legend,
Right.
And that it's just an amazing thing. But again, that goes to the longer you're willing to stay climbing that ladder, the more people you're going to come across. Even if you're just basically a poor dude like me from Central Ohio, people like to help people that are also ascending, people that are strivers, people that want to always improve themselves. They get incredible amounts of fulfillment from helping other people, pulling other people up. Matter of fact, that is almost the life energy that empowers them to want to go higher themselves. The fulfillment of helping other people.
Right.
And that's hard to explain, right? Until you've actually lived a life like that, or at least tried to.
It's so funny. John Wooden was one of my heroes. He was the basketball coach at UCLA, lived to be 100. When he was 90, he says, "Can I go back and be an assistant coach at UCLA?" He loved coaching. He loved what you do. I see the passion you have. What's kind of cool is John Wooden, the #1 coach of all time, goes, at 90, "Can I go be assistant coach?"
That's awesome, though, isn't it?
Isn't it cool?
Yeah.
It was like he just wants to help. He just wants to teach. He says, I miss teaching. He didn't miss winning all the championships. So I hope that never leaves us, that we want to help people.
That is it. I mean, that's the essence of all of it, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the money stuff, it's definitely necessary. It definitely makes life better. There's definitely no downside in having more money. Do not be confused about that. There's no aspect of life that's not improved with more money. None. Even the worst problem in the world is better when you have money, because the problem isn't as bad. So, don't be confused about that, listeners. Please don't be dissuaded and not hearing what we had to say just because we talked about money and maybe that's your bugaboo. Unbugaboo that, and then realize that everything you want in life comes on the other side of you helping more people accomplish their goals. And if you're not at that point where you wanted to be, hope to be, or maybe you never thought like that, hopefully today's podcast will inspire you. Anything you want to say to these guys as we round the bend?
No, just enjoy your lives, guys. 2021 is coming. Let's go.
So the only thing we didn't experience in 2020 was alien visitation.
I thought we had that. I thought you already discussed that earlier in the
Julie
year.
and I are waiting for it. We made a list of all the crazy things that will be happening in 2020, and we had them all. Flying snakes, murder hornets, global pandemic, all these things. And the only thing that we didn't get was like number 11 on our list of crazy wackadoodle things, alien visitation.
Next year.
Good. Hey, you know what? More people we can get into EXP. We
Yeah.
can go interstellar. We're not thinking big enough.
Mars.
Interstellar.
Mars.
Glenn, if you're listening, we need to start thinking about different planets, solar systems. God bless all of you. Merry Christmas.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows. And until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.